Welcome back, Lake listeners. It's officially time for season 4 with our Grow, Thrive, Inspire podcast. Thank you for tuning in with Jeff and I, and we are very excited to kick this new season into high gear with a huge guest for episode 1. This new friend of mine went from being a 2-time college dropout to a street cop, a deputy sheriff, SWAT team leader, and now the CEO of the real estate industry giant RE/MAX. In addition to that, he is the author of his new book, Start with a Win, Tools and Lessons to Create Personal and Business Success. It's my pleasure to welcome the CEO of RE/MAX Holdings and Motto Mortgage, Mr. Adam Contos. Adam, thank you so much for being on the show today. It is so awesome to have you here.
Well, it's awesome to be here. It's great to see you guys, and thanks for having me on.
So, Adam, I wanted to start the show off today with you just telling our listeners just a little bit about yourself and where you found the passion to write the book, Start with a Win.
Well, it starts a few years ago. I started a podcast called Start with a Win, and we've been doing that just every single week, sometimes twice a week, ever since then. We have a couple hundred episodes out, and it's just been a great time to share our feelings, my feelings about personal and business success and growth. And I got a call one day from a publisher saying, "Hey, have you written a book?" And I said, "No, I haven't, but I think I have a book in me someplace." And so, of course, they said, "Well, we'd like to publish it. Do you want to write it?" I said, "Sure. What do you want me to call it?" And they go, "Well, Start with a Win. Why not?" So sat down, and it took about a year to put these thoughts together, and here we are.
Wow, a year. I figured it would take a little bit longer than that. That's amazing.
It was a lot. Writing a 55 to 60,000 word book is a pretty big undertaking. And it's interesting because like 90 some percent of society want to write a book, but only like 1 or 2% actually do. So it's
Wow.
a chore, but when you get it done, it's very rewarding.
I can imagine. Now, I have got to say that I finished your book over the holiday break, and it was really good. I really enjoyed how you laid out the chapters, making for kind of a really easy read with actionable items for personal and professional growth. Some of my favorite chapters were chapter 1, The Attitude You Can, Be a Sponge, chapter 4, and then chapter 6, From Chaos to Calm. Just a lot of them. But one chapter that really stood out to me that I would love to focus on today for this episode was chapter 3, which is called Party with the Beast, Your Emotions. This chapter kind of hit home for me due to like my own fear and doubt and overwhelm. So what made you think of topics for this chapter as a beast? Because I thought that was kind of a great analogy. Was it Bruce that you mentioned in that chapter?
Yeah. So we all have a beast inside of us, and it is that doubt, that overwhelm, that, the questions that we ask ourselves when we want to do something. And it's a fear emotion. We have 2 emotions in this. We have fear, which is our default emotion, and we have love, which is our intentional emotion. Well, there's this default emotion that we always revert to, and that's when we start questioning ourselves. It happens to everybody. In fact, this is the number one reason why a business deal doesn't work, is because there's doubt and overwhelm. In the real estate space, we look at it, we're like, "Oh my gosh, the deal's falling apart." Well, why do you stop getting phone calls from, one side or the other of the transaction? It's because there's overwhelm involved. Mm-hmm. So, the reality is, when I was in the SWAT world, we used to kick doors and blow things up and save people for a living. And, when you're on the other side of this door and there's gunfire and there's an armed person inside the building or something like that, you don't know what's going to happen. That's fear, doubt, and overwhelm right there. And you have to understand, is this beast that I'm sitting here talking about or thinking about right now going to stop me from doing my job? Or am I going to go inside and I'm going to enjoy my time with the beast? I'm going to party with the beast and get things done. So yes, it started in my SWAT world, but I'll tell you what, it happens for everybody, all the way to, when I was a little kid, to even right now, we have these questions about ourselves. We just got to party with the beast.
What we talk about, that's amazing, because, how it relates to real estate and how many different, when you've got different agents involved and how they all deal with things a little bit differently, that those are big parts to making a transaction successful or not.
That's right, Jeff. I mean, the reality is it's fascinating when things start falling apart, it's because you've got this deadlock going on with your beast, there's a challenge and everybody's afraid to address it, or they're angry because they have to address it. And how do we do this? We have to reach across and say, beast, give me your hand. Let's go have a good time and enjoy ourselves and communicate. Communication solves most problems. And if you talk to your beast, whatever it might be, another person or the fear, doubt, and overwhelm we face inside ourselves, you'll get through it.
Mm-hmm.
I love that, Adam. And when you were writing about overcoming fear, I love how you took on a prepared approach to this and talked about taking action. Can you elaborate more on facing it head on and how we avoid opportunities due to fear?
Oh, sure. We when we see opportunities, we always have this unknown in our heads. It could be anything from, am I going to go talk to another customer, or am I going to pick up the phone, or am I going to go knock on another door? Who knows what it is? But we always end up with this what if, and it puts a knot in our stomach and it makes our heart sink and we get scared again, because it's natural. We're not intrinsically designed to run out and meet new people all the time. We are creatures of a herd, a pack, a village, and we're not designed to like the other villages out there because they're unsafe to us. So ultimately, we have to make it a conscious effort to do that. And really the only way to overcome that, the reality is nobody's going to eat you. Okay. If you pick up the phone and call them, they're not going to eat you. So, they're there because they want to do the same thing you want to do. It's just that somebody has to build that bridge, and action is how you construct that bridge. Action overcomes fear 100% of the time, because fear is the unknown of the future. Action is getting to the future by doing something, and the fear is in the rear, the rear view mirror then.
I love that. Sorry, Jeff.
No, it's true. I get excited when you talk about this. The anticipation is always worse than what really happens, and it's the action that's so it's a challenge. Sometimes I laugh and I say your brain is not your friend. The more you think about something without just doing it, it's a problem. Sometimes you just got to do it.
Totally. Yeah. I just gotta. I one of my sections is face it head on, and it's so much easier said than done. The three of us can sit here all day long and go after it and do it. And then like Mel Robbins has this, count to 5 or whatever.
Yeah,
exactly. And everybody has these little things, and it's interesting because we all cope with fear in different ways. But the reality is, if we don't cope with fear, it multiplies. It continues to build on us, and then we really get overwhelmed, and then we go into really a fear response, which is fight, flight, or freeze. And it's the freeze part is typically what happens in today's day and age. Or really, when you look at like fighting is rationalizing, excuses, pushing back, arguing, things like that. Flight, maybe you're ghosting somebody. You're not returning a phone call, a text message, an email, whatever it might be. We have a modern way of dealing with those things instead of just turning tail and running while we're out there in the woods trying to catch dinner. So, this is a timeless emotion, and we just have to understand how to deal with it in this day and age.
Well, I'm really glad that that we're talking about that fear response, because that's my next question. So how has recognizing that fear response from others that you outlined in your chapter helped you within business?
Well, we have to have a high level of emotional intelligence in business. Okay. Leaders understand people's emotional situation. It's called EQ, emotional quotient, or emotional intelligence, if you will. So us as leaders, we have to recognize the emotion that people are in. And if you look for it, and I mentioned the two emotions, you have fear, the default emotion, and you have love, the intentional emotion. If you look at the emotion that somebody's in and ask yourself, which of those two are they in? Are they in an unconditional giving mode where they're like, hey, Jeff, it's Adam. I just want to spend some time with you and see what I can do to help you. That's 100% pure giving right there.
Right.
And, but the other one is, Jeff, what do you want? Why are you calling me? It's, I was busy, I'm rationalizing excuses. I'm trying to fight, flight, or freeze to get the heck out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And if we take a look at that and just establish, okay, where is this person at in their emotions? Then we know, okay, what am I dealing with? Now, ultimately, the response is simple. The response is 100% simple because there's only one response, and that response is to give love. To give love. Most people come into a fear situation where, Jeff calls me and he's angry, and you know what I do? I argue back. I'm meeting fight with fight, and nothing good happens ever when you meet fight with fight, or when you meet a fear response with a fear response. If I ghost him, or if I don't respond or freeze or whatever, again, nothing good happens because he just gets more angry. Fear builds when love is not deployed. And so if I come in and I'm like, Jeff, I love your passion for this. I love your intensity for trying to get this done. And thank you, because we're both on the same side to try and get this thing done. Let's work together to make it happen. But I got to tell you, I love this energy I'm feeling right now. Let's go after it. And I start giving some gratitude, because gratitude is a deployment of love. And, really I'm giving love into that fear. It's going to knock that fire down. Jeff's going to come around. It might take longer. It might take shorter. It might be instant. But the reality is he's acknowledged. I appreciate him, and let's go do it.
That's so inspiring. Being able to not only have that EQ or that EI, emotional intelligence, but to be able to act on that and then utilize it in your personal life and professional life. It can only mean more growth, in my opinion.
We have a great longtime agent in the company, and she's always said, be into curiosity, not judgment. And a lot of what you just said reminds me of what that causes. I mean, it's similar. You're not reacting to something. You're just continuing to be curious and have that servant type attitude in there.
That's a great point, Jeff. Let me ask you this. Let's do a quiz with the audience here. Okay, we have curiosity and we have judgment. Now tell me, when I say the word, what emotion is this? Judgment. Harsh.
Yes.
That's fear, isn't it?
Fear, negative, right? That's
an attack. Judgment is projecting fear. Okay. Now let's do curiosity. Curiosity. Is that fear or love?
I'd say more love. I mean, I could see how it would be fearful, but I get more excitement from that word.
Well, curiosity really is witnessing, not judging, correct? So we're looking at facts and we're looking at reality, and facts and reality are given with a caring heart, because they are to notice something instead of to attack it or to judge it.
Right.
So, I mean, that observation by your agent, Jeff, is completely correct, because curiosity is given with the best of intention, and judgment is not given with the best of intention. So, I mean, and we all know people who are judgy, and it's just not a good person to be around, frankly.
Well, and I know we spend a lot of time in our organization talking with our agents in training and just meetings and one-on-ones about how small acts of kindness goes a long way. And you had outlined several examples of that in the chapter, one being with your daughter in a coffee shop, for example, and just complimenting somebody. What inspires me about that is I don't think a lot of people take the time to really understand how compliments or small acts of kindness can lead to more optimal levels of success. So can you elaborate more on just, that kind of piece of that chapter, just that small acts of kindness and more of that for our listeners?
Sure. And I'll take this back to Dale Carnegie, who wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People. He said that there's two things that people can't give themselves and that they appreciate more than anything else. And that's personal attention and appreciation. Personal attention and appreciation. Now, when you think about that, it's so simple that we miss it all day long, because what we're looking for, we're programmed by human nature to look for danger. We're not programmed to look for the ability to compliment somebody. Okay. I mean, that did not keep us alive when we lived in caves and went hunting tigers and things like that. What kept us alive was being afraid and being very cautious. Well, cautious is not a good social skill necessarily. You can be cautious when you deploy love and be aware. But the reality is, just to even go back to you mentioned when Ashley, my daughter, and I were in the drive-through line at a coffee shop, and Ashley looked at the lady who was helping us at the drive-through window and said, "I love your makeup," and smile. And the girl's eyes lit up, and she was so happy. She was like, "Thank you." And she was just genuinely interested in us having a great experience there, because my daughter was genuinely interested in her being happy. So, and what did this cost us? Nothing. It took a little attention and appreciation just to notice her. And we have a rule at headquarters, and that's, you see somebody in the hallway, say hi to them. And I don't get into an elevator without greeting somebody or asking them how they're doing. Or I say hello to people in passing at the gym, and everybody's wearing headphones and, has their head down or whatever. But, the reality is, share some love, and it costs you nothing.
Right.
And you never run out of it. So, but I'll tell you what, it is magic when you see the results.
Such magic. So you then transitioned to the science of being overwhelmed with John Boyd and his process of the OODA, the observe, orient, decide, act. Can you tell our listeners more about that? Because I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah, this is a really cool concept. So there is a concept called the OODA loop. So OODA is what OODA is. It's an acronym. And it was developed by Colonel John Boyd. He lived from 1927 to 1997. And he was a fighter pilot in the U.S. Air Force during the Korean War. He flew, I think, like F-86 fighter planes or something like that. But what he did was he ended up analyzing how people engage with overwhelm. And that happened, you're a fighter pilot, you're flying a fighter plane, and you have other fighter planes coming at you. You're like, oh my gosh, this is overwhelming. You have to have a process to deal with that overwhelm and get into action in order to win the dogfight or whatever it is, the situation. So he broke it down to a point where he says you have to, and you take the OODA word, you have to observe what's going on, jump over to observe, orient. So, okay, where is it going on? Where am I? How's this going? Decide, here's what I'm going to do, and then act. Mm-hmm. So this is like a chain of thought is what he came up with. And when you're overwhelmed, what you're prevented from doing is orienting, deciding, and acting. You're just observing and overwhelmed by that. So he says, push you on to orient, push you on to decide, push you on to act. And what this does is it causes you to move through your brain and figure out a solution and then put that solution into motion. So for instance, like I live in Colorado and it snows here, and you're driving down an icy road and you push on the brakes and nothing happens. You just keep going. You're like, oh, what do I do? Well, you got to observe, look around. Are there any other cars? Is there a ditch, a stop sign, whatever I'm going to crash into? Orient, where am I at? What do I do? Okay, if I straighten the wheel out, take my foot off the brake, decide, take my foot off the brake and straighten out the wheel, and then act, go ahead and do it. I can fix this situation. There's pretty much nothing you can't fix just by running through this cycle of decision-making process. So think about that. And we use it in SWAT all the time. I mean, right. Our goal is to, when we would enter a location, we would throw off flashbang grenades. It like make big explosions and make people disoriented and stuff like that. And what we try to do is disrupt their OODA loop, because if we were in a faster decision-making process than they were, we could take control of the situation before they understood what was going on. So it's now a regularly used term in police, military, things like that, but ultimately has a great place in life and business, because if you're stuck in a situation, put it into play, it'll get you out.
Yeah, that's what I love about all these principles. Really, you can apply them to your personal life, but they have great application in what we do every day with buyers and sellers as well. If you're just aware of them and understand when you need to use them.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I mean, think about this, Jeff. It's perfect. you look at it and you go, okay, this person's got a listing and they just got 10 offers. What do I do?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have an agent, a professional agent, RE/MAX agent, that says, okay, I've seen this before. We got this. Here's our observation. We got 10 offers. Let's divide them up. These are cash. These are well qualified. These are full price. These are overpriced. These have no contingencies, blah, blah, blah. All these other things.
Mhm.
So let's orient everything, decide what we're going to do, and then act upon it.
Mhm.
I mean, it totally takes the overwhelm out of the situation.
I also look at it from a training perspective and a business perspective from an agent's business, and having them decide the plans and actions and strategies to commit to their business and then act on those strategies. And I've seen such growth in our industry and so many other industries of agents just having that OODA loop within themselves and not even realizing that they're acting on that. It's such a cool experience to see.
Doesn't take long. If you practice, then you become confident. And once you become confident with it, you can see the change. It really, really helps.
Totally. You guys are right. I mean, the reality is it's a tool in our toolbox.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we're going to face overwhelm in business and in life. Let's just have a reason to deal with it or a way to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. So I have a couple more questions for you, Adam, before we wrap up. The next one being, what about hitting reset and thinking positive? I truly believe from my own experience that if you can control your thoughts, you can control your life. How do you reset to control your beast?
Great question, Kaylen. I mean, this is a fascinating one because we all get, let's say we did get overwhelmed. Let's say we did, let's pretend you're going to take out a buyer and you just got a speeding ticket. I mean, everybody's been there, right? I mean, you're going, and it just took the wind out of your sails. You're overwhelmed. Maybe you spilled coffee on yourself in the process. I mean, we have these domino effects of chaos that happen in our lives. Sometimes we're like, oh, I feel horrible. I'm angry. I'm overwhelmed. I'm not happy. You can be what you want to be. Okay. And a lot of people will be like, how's that? But truthfully, we can talk ourselves into different situations. Now, I remember a time when I left the house one morning. I was going to the gym and I was miserable. I mean, I was so angry I couldn't see straight. And I'm about as level-headed as they come. I've been through a lot of situations in my life, and I don't know what was wrong with me. I mean, I've known you guys for a long time, and you've probably never seen me be anything more than like fun and happy. But the reality is I was hurting, and we all get there sometimes. Mm-hmm. But I turned on some good classical music. And I also, every now and then I flip over to a podcast that I just love. And the guy tells you motivational stories or whatever. All you gotta do is type in motivational stuff in the podcast and you're like, oh, here's a whole bunch of them. But I was driving down the road telling myself, I am happy. I am happy. And try this sometime because you look goofy. You're like, in your car. And people were like, oh, they must be singing. But I was convincing myself that I was happy. And by the time I got to the gym, I was really happy with myself because I was like, why would I be anything else? I just convinced myself I'm happy. I mean, it's just this self-affirmation. I programmed my brain. I got rid of the two goofy people in my head that were telling me I wasn't. And I mean, the reality was you can do what you want to do. You just have to tell yourself, don't be afraid to say it out loud, because when we proclaim our thoughts, we have to live them. It's like a commitment to ourselves. Mm-hmm. So you can hit that reset button that way, or go buy yourself some flowers or a Starbucks, or I mean, who knows what. Give somebody a hug. Tell them you love them. Whatever it might be, but always know there's a reset out there.
Hey, my wife has started me on, a long time ago, she started me on do-overs. It's okay in our house to have a do-over. Mm-hmm. And I think they're needed. And I love the reset idea. And I also were super passionate about being aware of what you're putting in, because there are so many things right now that I think that sometimes we just are numb to how much is coming in and how negative what is what we're exposed to or what we unintentionally expose ourselves to that does that. So
totally. Here's an idea for you, Jeff. I love that thought process. Okay, so what do most people do when they get home from the office, work, road, whatever, each day? They turn on the TV, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they turn on the news. And I mean, it's like crack for depression. I mean, just, yeah, they want to tell you everything that's wrong in the world. Really, none of it has to do with where you're at right there. So, the COVID's this, and, something's burning down or blowing up, or somebody got kidnapped or killed. I don't know what it is, but, I'll tell you, I'm standing there going, if I fill my glass with dirty water, I'm going to be drinking dirty water. But, but if I fill my glass with clean water and pure water and happy water, and, then I get to drink that. So what are you filling your head with?
Right.
Because that's what's going to come out of your body. And, don't turn on the TV that way. Here's the cool part about TVs these days, they're all smart TVs where you can just connect your phone to it or whatever.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Put on something positive, for crying out loud.
Yes.
And
Awesome.
watch that. Or don't even turn a darn thing on and revert to, a podcast, or just how about some peace and quiet?
Yeah, peace and quiet too.
True.
So let's wrap up discussing the final piece of your chapter, which was the strugglers and the excuse makers. I agree that it is kind of the responsibility, or the full responsibility, of the leader to help their people. So one of the quotes that I loved about this, to quote your book, was, a great approach is to sit down with the person and let them know that you feel something outside of your control is challenging their ability to perform to their full potential. And you want to help because you think they have so much more potential than they realize. Then I ask, is everything okay in other aspects of your life? Again, people don't care what you know until they know that you care. How can our listeners take this approach and apply it to their personal and professional life?
Wow. This comes back down to that emotional intelligence piece of recognizing other people's emotions and actually being able to deploy some love in that process. The reality is, when people drop down a level into this, I'm in a misery state, and they stay there, it's a combination of things. One, they're giving off misery, so they're infecting everybody around them. It's like a virus.
Yes.
And they're dropping misery everywhere they go. And you're like, oh my gosh, you are just a miserable person to be around. But everybody's afraid to say anything. And you know what? They also attract other miserable people because they're like, this magnifies their misery. It's like getting a gang of miserable people together. And that's horrible, right? So the reality is, your job as a leader or a parent or a colleague or a friend or a partner, whatever it might be, is to, really call them out on this stuff. Be a leader and call them out on this and say, hey, I care about you. I notice something's not right here. Is there something I can help you with? Because you're not, you're like right here. We could be up like several levels right here. But the reality is, it's not typically what they're currently working on that is making them miserable. So like if it's a real estate agent, if they're working on a deal and they're just really angry, it's probably not that deal, but they're delivering their anger into that deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's generally, we have 8 parts of our life that we operate in, and business is only one of those parts. And, the others, some examples are your family, your relationships with your friends, your faith, your finances, your health is a big one, as in, exercise and nutrition, things of that nature. So there's all these different parts of our life. Usually I can tell you misery starts at home. Okay. And a lot of people hate to hear this, and it hurts to hear.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, we're not happy with our partner, our spouse. Maybe we're a single parent and we have this crazy relationship with our kids or our dog. Who knows what it is, but you're not happy at home. Nothing is going to work well until you get happy holistically in all aspects of your life. And if you're helping somebody discover this, let them know it's okay to be not okay, but it's not okay to continue it and perpetuate it, because all you're doing is delivering it to everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So look further than where the problem is. Look back to where we don't typically look as a colleague or something like that and figure out, how can I help you? And just ask them, how can I help you? Because I want to see you happy. We want to see each other. We want to be great if everybody walked down the street and high-fived each other and gave each other hugs and said, I love your shoes, or, great watch, or I'm happy today. Let's do a real estate deal, whatever it might be. I mean, what a wonderful world to live in, right?
Right. Couldn't agree more. I love your office, by the way.
Thank you.
Well, Adam, we could not be more thankful and appreciative for your time today and expanding more on your amazing book. It was such a pleasure having you on the show today.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Kaylen, for having me. And Jeff, it's great to see you. My best to everybody at your offices there. Let's go out and have a crazy killer 2022. Okay.
We're ready. We're excited.
And
Awesome.
Grow, Thrive, Inspire listeners, you can find more information about Adam and his book at startwithawin.com. We have more of season 4 coming at you, so be sure to continue to like and follow us on all of our platforms, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, and more, and also Key Radio 89.3 FM in Osage Beach. And remember to always grow, thrive, and inspire, and we'll catch you next time.